You're listening to the Doc Lounge podcast. This is a place for candid conversations with the healthcare industry's top physicians, executives, and thought leaders. This podcast is made possible by Pacific Companies, your trusted advisor in physician recruitment.
Well, I wanted to welcome everybody today to our newest episode of the Doc Lounge podcast by Pacific Companies. We're going to be highlighting a healthcare industry expert today in our Ask the Expert series. I'm your host, Stacey Doyle, Senior Director of Marketing. And today we have joining us Shannon Seeberan, the co-founder of CloudMedSpas, also known as CMS. She is, just has a ton of experience after more than 13 years working in media sales. She decided to pivot her career and enter a totally new field as a dermatology private practice consultant. Shannon understands the courage and motivation required to successfully pursue a whole new venture. And as a mom and previous entrepreneur, she is passionate about empowering the many women who seek the financial benefits of controlling and running their own business. And in addition to that, helping healthcare providers like a lot of you in our audience today. So 3 years ago, she was introduced to Iggy Fanlow, the CloudMedSpas founder. And really after that, the rest is history. So we're going to learn about that journey today. And mostly what I'm excited about to share with our audience is Shannon is really focused on communicating the benefits of CMS to empower all of the healthcare providers on how they can monetize medically appropriate space and really leverage that, for revenue for their practice. So welcome to the podcast, Shannon.
Thank you. Thanks, Stacey. Thanks for having me.
We're delighted. I think this is such a great topic and something, we've had questions about previously about, how can healthcare providers really make the best use of their medically approved space and have that benefit them. So first, I just love to give you a time to just, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into CMS.
Yeah. I think at the core, healthcare, medicine, working with physicians was something I always wanted to do. My dad was a GP. His family practice was attached to our house. My mom ran his practice. So the discussions of the business of medicine was always at our dinner table, as you can imagine, and how his practice was running. And so obviously as a child growing up in that atmosphere, I was always privy to that conversation. I thought I would eventually get into medicine. Life did not pan out that way, but I'm excited to be where I am now. And working with physicians and practitioners, is a huge focus of what I do, and being able to really connect with them, understand their struggles of running their practice, of their business. And you hit the nail on the head when you said monetize medically appropriate space. Outside of the business of aesthetics, which is what our platform empowers as well, is truly providing a smarter way, a smarter revenue source for practices to leverage their biggest asset, which tends to be their real estate, their lease, their rent.
Makes a lot of sense. So to get some of our listeners familiar, can you explain, CloudMedSpas and the service, what is the service that it provides?
Sure. Yeah. So, as you know, we didn't invent shared space. That's been around for a while. Really from a corporate standpoint, WeWork really put it on the map. I think people were doing that before WeWork even started. The idea of Airbnb, renting space you already have available, whether it's a spare home or the apartment over your garage or an extra bedroom, the ability to leverage an asset has always been there, and it's more dominant in the industry now. So how can we do, to be able to apply that to healthcare, to medicine, is a huge tool. um, CloudMedSpas is a software platform that helps our clients leverage that opportunity. So we initially started as a brick and mortar. So the model with which we expanded into via SaaS, software as a service, was tried and true via our original brick and mortar. which was actually called Mansanity. We built an actual space in Boston, 13 exam rooms, fully outfitted for independent aesthetic practitioners. This in non-invasive aesthetics, which includes injectables, things like Botox, fillers, laser treatments, hair removal, resurfacing, things like that. Practitioners could come, rent by the hour and use the space, access the devices, purchase the product to inject their patients, only buy what they needed that day. They were not committed to a lease or a monthly payment. Some, if they wanted a monthly setup, they could have that. But in theory, their risk was low because they were only paying for the time in the space when they were generating their own revenue. So these practitioners were coming to the space, they were managing their own transactions, they were managing their own client list, they were managing their own EMR. They were independent entrepreneurs providing a much needed service that's in high demand. The majority of these practitioners also tend to be RNs, NPs, and PAs, other medical professionals. So we figured the most efficient way to scale this opportunity, because that location blew up. It's still there, doing very well. We have about 70 practitioners at that one location renting the space. And they're flourishing. And practitioners are working smarter, not harder. They're making more money when they're in the space for a short period of time. So we figured there's a huge demand in this aesthetic industry for practitioners to be independent entrepreneurs. They don't want to give a margin of their procedure to the med spa owner as an employee or even the plastic surgeon or derm. They want to take home the full profitability of their procedure. But space is needed. We see that with Sola Salon Suites and different space rental options out there, which really blew up over the pandemic when a lot of people were seeking, solo space that allowed them to continue to offer their, beauty practice or injectables, things like that, without bumping into too many people. But what our locations provide is, in addition to getting access to space, they also get access to product at very competitive rates to treat their patients. So now we have clients nationally, so over 17 clients nationally, who are using our platform, our software, to help them leverage underutilized space at their practice. So whether they're dentists or physicians, core or non-core specialty, if they have 2 underutilized exam rooms or 1 underutilized exam room, one or, a couple days a week or 5 days a week or on Saturdays, they can now use that space to drive additional revenue via the rental model. There are practitioners who are seeking independent spaces to treat their clients and get access to product. And that's what our platform allows our clients to do. So now Dr. So-and-so has, 1 exam room available a couple days a week. He has 5 different practitioners renting space out of there, different hours of the day, different days of the week. On average, a typical provider rents anywhere from 10 to 30 hours a month. That, from a revenue standpoint, can generate anywhere from $1,000 to $3,000 per practitioner, per renter, for a physician's practice every month. So when you think of having 6 or 10 different practitioners renting a month and being able to subsidize your overhead as a practice owner with additional rental revenue of other medical professionals renting space from you, it's a smart way to go about leveraging your biggest asset in your space.
That sounds incredible, and a great way for a lot of our providers to be able to really, like you're saying, offset a lot of the costs. We know that it's getting a lot more expensive just to conduct business, with the current climate that, our physicians and APPs are facing. Tell me a little bit about the risk side of this. Now, are they inherently taking on risk of these services, or how does that work?
That's a great question and a huge concern for a lot of potential clients, especially physicians. There is no risk associated. The owner of the practice or the location has no visibility as to who the patient is that's getting the procedure done, what the procedure is. All of the records and the healthcare data associated with the treatment and the patient are between the provider and the patient. Our software only allows visibility to see that Stacey's going to be in room B today from 2 to 4. That's it. And so in theory, you become like a landlord, a glorified landlord to other people using your space. Another layer of sort of a buffer of liability is that each practitioner that's using your space has their own malpractice insurance. They have their own medical director outside of you, outside of your practice. It's another medical director elsewhere. So there's no correlation of liability there as well. So it really is a tried and true, clean way to transact. Give your space, the available space, to practitioners seeking a space to practice close to where they may work, close to where their patients are. And the access to product that you're leveraging through the platform for the practitioners to really want to be on site is a huge opportunity.
Okay, so they get the and you talked a little bit about that, but they're getting, kind of discounted rates on, obviously, you guys are a large company across the nation, and so that benefits kind of then carry over to anyone that would practice with them,
Correct. When you open and start an injection business, you need to start an account with these prescription product companies, depending on which products you're using. There is a large buy-in expected. In order to achieve competitive product rates, you have to buy a lot of product, like anything. And so what this, alleviates from the practitioner standpoint is they're getting access to large corporate accounts without the inventory investment upfront, right? So they're getting access to the product without having to carry around $40,000 of inventory, hoping they can move that amount of procedures to get the money back from purchasing the inventory. So we're reducing a lot of the overhead and risk associated with starting your own aesthetics practice. When a typical med spa is opened, you've got the lease and overhead. You have obviously the product inventory. Potentially, you're buying a lot of devices. These devices per device run, upwards of six figures a piece. You're hiring people potentially, whether it's an office manager, other injectors. So you've got salaries to take care of. And then you're also trying to make sure there's a healthy stream of clients coming in so that your employees are busy. So when you think about the overhead costs of starting your own potential med spa or business or getting into aesthetics, which can be perceived as a very lucrative business, there's a lot of overhead that is overlooked. So at the end of the day, these practitioners own the relationship with their patients. Not unlike hair care, where Stacey, I'm sure you will go across town and, if your hairstylist moves an hour away, you will make that extra hour trek to find them. That is very similar with medical aesthetics. Medical aesthetic practitioners have that relationship with their patients. When they leave an employer, the patients tend to follow them, and that employer is, out of a ton of revenue of patients that follow that practitioner. So empowering these practitioners to be their own business owner, to drive their own revenue and profitability, and at the same time building a business model that is in demand for space is a win for everyone, every player in the opportunity of, whether it's leveraging your medical space or getting into medical aesthetics. So we have, obviously, we have physicians of all different specialties. We have dentists who we're not discriminating on how much space or size you have. But when you think about the overhead that is also plaguing private practices, whether it's poor insurance margins, obviously salaries of existing employees and nurses in the space, and also leases. Your costs are constantly going up as a physician practice owner, and you have very few areas with which you can negotiate your margins to be better. So you have to be smarter about, as a business owner, how can I leverage my largest investment, which tends to be my space? A lot of physicians are doing this organically now, whether it's the cardiologist that comes up from Tampa a couple days a week to see patients. They might be letting that physician use space in their office, things like that. This is another smart way to leverage the opportunity.
Love that, and wanted to inquire now in terms of what they need at the facility. Like, tell us kind of, ho are there certain things, certain specs? And in terms of some of the devices and equipment used? Tell us how that works.
Yeah, we encourage our, clients who have an existing practice. You probably have everything in place that is needed, right? An exam chair, which is already there, um, so, Sharps disposal, which most medical practices already have. The practitioners who are coming into the space for an hour or two to inject a few clients are just looking for a clean exam room with which to treat their clients. They're also purchasing the product that they need to treat their clients. So you, as the owner of the space, will see it via the CloudMedSpas software that Stacey's coming in on Tuesday for 2 hours. She also purchased ahead of time, in addition to renting the room, she purchased a vial of neurotoxin. And so you just want to make sure that that product is there when Stacy shows up, right? So our software manages the ordering of the product and making sure the product is on site when the practitioner is there. It's all very streamlined. So you're just equipping that practitioner with all the tools and resources they need to want to come back to the space week after week and treat their clients so that you have that generated rental revenue. But really, it's the bare minimum. Practitioners come in, treat their clients, leave. It's a very fluid process. They are most, most often medical professionals themselves. So, and you are able to meet and see these practitioners before they access your space. And so it is always the prerogative of our clients to decide who's in their space and when they're using the space. They have full control over that.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Do you have times when the physician or maybe, even some of the APPs want to actually be, do this in addition to what they, their regular bread and butter business?
Yeah, that has happened, and that's a great question too, is this is just a more efficient, more economical way of integrating aesthetics into your practice. So if you are an OBGYN, you already have the female clientele. Rather than opening up a med spa aspect of your business, incorporate and integrate Cloud Med Spas into your practice. Now you get access to the product that you need to inject your patients. And maybe you start injecting as an OBGYN 2 days a month, but now you have access to the product. We are also great resources with getting any one of our clients or someone who's pursuing this opportunity trained. This is a great entry and foray into the medical aesthetic space. And as we know, the demand for the procedures is increasing, the demand for the practitioners is increasing. So, training and education is a huge aspect of what we do as well. But it's a much less risky way of integrating, obviously, aesthetics into your business. And for a lot of practices, it is endemic to who their clients already are. It makes sense for them to integrate sort of a cash aspect of medicine into their practice, and it can definitely flourish and drive a ton of revenue for them.
Love that, and I think that's cool to hear because there's, if there's different options and different ways to go. One is where there's really no risk, and it's literally like you're saying, it's almost like the benefits of just being a glorified landlord. And one is you can also, if you want to, get more involved and administer and have a little bit more on that side of the cash business as well. Tell us, like, what are the trends that you guys are seeing overall in aesthetics? Like, what should providers be aware of? Like, is this, you said it's growing, but what are you really seeing right now?
Yeah, I think it's constant growth, and the majority of practitioners getting into this space are nurses. So we're coming out of the pandemic. Um, there's obviously a huge, a large quantity of nurses who came out from working 70-hour work weeks. They realize this is not a sustainable work-life balance for them. And so they love nursing, but working the sort of imbalance that they currently have and the compensation they have is not something that is really filling their bucket. So we see a lot of nurses entering the aesthetic space. It's very endemic to what they're already doing. They're, obviously injecting is what they're doing every day anyways as well. And so to be able to empower a lot of nurses to pursue a side hustle, to pursue a better work-life balance. Instead of working a 60-hour work week, maybe you can dial back to being a part-time nurse and work 10 hours a month and generate a very healthy additional cash revenue opportunity for yourself. So that is a very empowering, part of this business, is that we are giving these nursing professionals a choice and an option, when a lot of them felt like they didn't have any option but to work, to be overworked and exhausted and tired. And now we're sort of empowering a huge market of healthcare professionals to sort of fulfill an industry that is growing, over 200% a year, with demand in different product modalities. We are only becoming a more vain society than we already are. When aesthetics was, around 20 years ago, it was women in their 40s and 50s getting a little Botox and no one was talking about it. Now it's women in their 20s and 30s, and now it's men, right? So the population that is asking for these procedures is growing. It's not going anywhere. And so the demand to empower practitioners, who are just endemically good at doing this, is just a great fit. But there's not enough employment opportunities for everybody who wants to get into the space. Our CloudMedSpa locations provide a great opportunity for the motivated entrepreneur who knows she can start injecting 5, 10 clients, grow that to 20 and 50 over the course of a year, and start generating extra revenue for themselves. And so the access to the product, the access to the training and educations is a part of the locations that integrate CloudMedSpa software, but it's not invasive on your practice. It doesn't change how your practice works and looks. You as a practice owner have full control as to how often you make your space, or your 2 or 1 or 2 or 3 rooms available. But the opportunity to generate the additional revenue from the demand and growth in the aesthetics industry is there.
So obviously with this, software as a service, you guys are really helping connect these independent business men and women that have, like you're saying, this clientele that they may have already built up, and they want to, kind of try, and practice in a new setting. So it really is, from a marketing standpoint, if a practice doesn't even want it to be known that this is happening at this location, is that, they don't need to worry about that.
That's a good point. I like to compare our software to a software product more people are familiar with, like OpenTable. So when you think of OpenTable software, it doesn't change the branding of the restaurant. You can see sometimes when you walk into the restaurant, there's a sticker at the door. Obviously, you can Google to see if that restaurant is a part of OpenTable. But OpenTable really helps manage the efficiency of how that restaurant works. It helps maximize the amount of seatings during lunch and dinner, and make sure that that restaurant's generating the maximum amount of profitability during the hours that it's open. That is not, dissimilar to CloudMedSpas. We are a software platform that is optimizing your available space. You decide, just like OpenTable decides how many tables to seat, we decide with you how many rooms you want to put on the platform for how many hours. It's fluid. It can be changed from week to week. But, it really is a system that is not unlike an Airbnb. It's sort of like you have that apartment over your garage. Let's put it on Airbnb, start generating some extra revenue for yourself. It's a smart way to maximize your medical space.
That describing it that way, it makes so much sense, so I appreciate that analogy, and I think a lot of, our healthcare providers and practitioners will be like, "Okay, I get it now." And I mean, it sounds to me like such a kind of a no-brainer. Have you had, like, a success story, just something that you wanna share with our audience of a physician that tried this and was like, "Oh, wow, this is really easy, and now, I'm glad I did it."
Yeah. I mean, we have a few. And, we had one physician in Texas who came to us. She had tried implementing and starting a med spa a couple years before she connected with us. She was in a lot of debt because of the amount of investment she made in product and devices to open her med spa. She's a GI physician herself. And so she came to us in the red and frustrated because she had employees that would get busy, start seeing a lot of clients that she was generating for them, and then leave. And she just felt like she was on this hamster wheel of never making progress. She couldn't own her employees. She couldn't tell them they couldn't leave. And so it was just, meanwhile, she had all these investments in devices she had to pay off, but people left because they wanted to earn more profitability. And they left because they know they own the patient relationship. And that was a lifetime investment for them. And so when she came to us, we completely helped her pivot. Instead of being an employer of 3 people, she became a renter of 10 and had 10 different practitioners renting her space. She was empowering them with the product they needed to be successful, and everyone was happy. And the competition was gone, and the fighting of what anybody was making was gone because they were setting their own pricing, they were managing their own schedules. And she had a self-sustaining business now built under her because all of the tools and support, we support with as well. All of the rep relationships in the industry are cultivated through us for that location, so practitioners really feel taken care of under the CloudMedSpa concept and platform. And so now it just became a revenue stream of rental revenue for the physician. And it was just a very, sort of aha moment for her. Like this can be easier. There doesn't have to be one person winning. There doesn't have to be one capitalist, just like Uber. You have a car in your garage, you figure out how many days a week you want to drive people around and make money. That's under your control. So let's empower everyone with the tools they have. The practitioner, the physician wins, the practitioners win, everyone's happy. And so we really see more people and locations going in that direction. Med spas continue to struggle with, they don't own their client base. They don't own the patient base. The practitioners do. So I think that model is not changing. And so empowering the practitioner to own their own business is really the way to go.
Fascinating, and it makes a lot of sense because, yeah, your analogy with, like a hairdresser, that's the person that you're trusting for that service, so you're gonna, follow them where they go. I'd love to hear, is there any, future developments or projects that you guys are working on at, Cloud Med Spas that you wanna share with our audience and let them know about?
There are a couple things. We are constantly looking at how to increase the value of the practitioner and the client relationship. We're always hearing, we have over 150 practitioners currently in our network. We love to hear things that they could potentially need in order to make their business run more efficiently. There's so many tools in this space that everybody could use to be better entrepreneurs. And we want to streamline that process because when practitioners feel supported at our locations, they thrive, they rent more space, and our clients are happy. One thing we have recently integrated was, obviously, and this is not nuanced, but it's all the rage right now, is GLP-1s and the weight loss drugs that are pretty loud on the market right now. And Oprah, right before the holidays, mentioned shamelessly that she is converted to weight loss support through GLP-1s and semaglutide. And so we have partnered with a third party company where now the practitioners in our network are capable of referring their patients to be candidates for GLP-1 weight loss drugs. So that's just another sort of tool for practitioners in our network, for owners of Cloud Med Spas to offer for their patients and solutions. We are already in a aesthetic vein space. I can imagine with most practitioners, at least 20% of their clients would be candidates or want to consider weight loss support via GLP-1s. And so, we have integrated an opportunity from a referral standpoint, our practitioners have to only refer to our third party, which offers the healthcare the telehealth physician consulting, and the prescription medicine delivery. So as practitioners with large referral bases, there's a huge opportunity for passive income for our practitioners in this space. And, we believe GLP-1s aren't going anywhere anytime soon, and there's more good than bad that's coming along with them.
Love that. Okay, well, that's a whole nother, yeah. I mean, I'm sure that could be a huge business just on its own. Yeah. I know the demand of that is quite high. So, now, I really want I mean, I think this has been so, fascinating and enlightening, and I really hope that our listeners, our audience, are finding value, and we always try to, provide kind of business ways that as, a physician or an APP, you might be offsetting your practice costs or even your student loan debt, and this sounds like such a great way that's risk-free, that's easy, seamless, and it's capitalizing on their probably one of their biggest or largest overhead items, which is, either their rent or their mortgage or, whatever, however they have acquired and are using their current space and setting. So I think, we'll have a lot of people interested. Can you tell us more about how they can get, more information or how that works?
Yeah, well, and that's a good point too. What I didn't mention before is this is also another great scale option. If you have a healthy private practice and you're considering exploring a market that's, quite a little bit of a distance from your existing location, it's a great way to subsidize that new investment, right? Think about if you're going to sign a lease and attempt growth and patient growth in a new market, it's a great way to initiate subsidizing that initial investment with potential this rental model as well. But, as we mentioned, there's not one shoe that fits everybody. So we enter this venture with each of our clients, talking about how it fits their needs specifically. And so each location, each client has their own needs, their own amount of space, their own opportunity to leverage this. We tend to go deep with a full transparency on what is the potential profit opportunity here? And we review a pro forma financial with all of our prospective clients. So there's full awareness as to what this means specific to your space, your square footage, your availability, all of that. So, I think knowledge is power, more information about what the opportunities that exist for you as a physician out there to get back to what you love, get back to your patients, get back to your specialty, reduce the stress of overhead, of the costs of your salaries and and everything else that comes along with being a practice owner, and get back to doing what you love, and let's help alleviate a lot of those stresses. So, I love to have an initial call. Let's figure out, is this a potential option for you? It may or may not. It might be a year or two from now. So, having that initial conversation, is, I think, helpful for everyone, just to explore this opportunity. So I can, be easily reached via email, Shannon, SHANNON, at cloudmedspas.com. That's plural. And I also publicize my phone number. I can be reached or texted 773-398-1999. And then, our website is cloudmedspas.com. So check us out. Obviously, hopefully this podcast was informative and helpful enough, but, would love to have the initial discussion as well.
Thank you so much, Shannon, and we'll definitely, share that information on the screen, at the end here as well, so people can grab that, and reach out to you directly and get, some of those initial conversations going. But it sounds like, there's no risk, so why
Yeah,
not, why not try and
sure.
have, like you're saying, be able to focus more on what you love and had some extra money coming in. We all like
Right.
supplemental income, right?
Yep. Exactly. Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for being a guest today, Shannon, and sharing your time and insight. A fascinating world, and hopefully, you will be speaking with a lot of our audience soon.
I hope so. Thank you, Stacey. It was a pleasure.
You're welcome.
thank you to all of our listeners. If you would like to be notified when new episodes air, make sure to hit that subscribe button. And a big thank you to Pacific Companies. Without you guys, this podcast would not be possible. If you would like to be a guest, please go to www.pacificcompanies.com. Thank you.